I was 17 and it was the summer before senior year. My girlfriend at the time, Sarah, had a big old 2-story house with a finished basement that everyone called the dungeon. Her parents were away for the weekend at some wedding, so a bunch of us decided to throw a small party that turned into a classic game of hide and seek in the dark. There were 8 of us total. We killed all the lights except for one dim lamp in the kitchen and agreed the whole house was in play except the attic because the stairs were rickety and her dad would kill us if we broke anything. I was seeker first. I counted to 60 in the living room while everyone scattered like mice. When I opened my eyes, the house already felt different. Too quiet, too many shadows. I started in the basement. I checked behind the old couch, inside the storage closet, even under the ping pong table. Nothing. Then I went upstairs. I found 2 people pretty quick, one in the laundry room and another squeezed behind the shower curtain in the guest bathroom. That left 5 still hiding. I moved down the long hallway on the 2nd floor. Sarah's room was at the end. The door was shut, which was weird because we had left all the doors open on purpose. I pushed it open slowly. The room smelled like her vanilla perfume. I checked under the bed, in the closet, behind the curtains. Empty. But as I turned to leave, I heard the softest click behind me, like a door latch catching. I spun around. Nothing was there. I kept going. The next room was her little brother's old bedroom that they used for storage now. I stepped inside and immediately felt cold air on my neck, like someone had just breathed on me. I whipped around fast, but the room was still empty. My flashlight app on my phone caught something strange though. The closet door was moving, just a couple inches, like it had been nudged. I yanked it open. Coats, boxes, winter boots. No one. By now my heart was pounding harder than it should for a stupid game. I called out that I had found 3 people already and the rest should give up. No one answered. I went back downstairs and found 2 more hiding in the pantry and behind the TV stand. Only Sarah was left. I searched everywhere again. Basement, garage, even the backyard for a second. Nothing. Finally I stood in the middle of the living room and shouted, "Sarah, game over. You win." From somewhere above me came a faint giggle. Not loud, but clear. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time and headed straight for her room again. This time when I opened the door, I saw her sitting on the edge of the bed smiling at me. "Took you long enough," she said. I laughed, relieved. "Where the hell were you?" I checked this room twice. She tilted her head. "I was in here the whole time. Under the bed." I stared at her. I looked under the bed. There was nothing there. She shrugged and stood up. "Maybe you just miss me." We went downstairs to join the others. Everyone was laughing and telling stories about where they hid. But later, when Sarah went to the bathroom, one of our friends pulled me aside. "Dude." I was hiding in the storage room across the hall from Sarah's. "I heard someone walking around in her room while you were still searching downstairs. Heavy footsteps. Not hers. And then I heard whispering. 2 voices. I felt ice slide down my spine. Sarah came back a minute later acting completely normal. We never played hide and seek in that house again. To this day, whenever I remember that little giggle from upstairs, I wonder who, or what, was hiding with her in that room while I was looking everywhere else. The second story happened when I was 12, at my cousin's house during a big family reunion. There were probably 20 kids running around, and after dinner someone suggested a massive game of hide and seek that covered the entire property. The house was old, surrounded by cornfields on one side and a big barn on the other. Rules were simple. No going inside the barn because it was dangerous, and you had to stay on the property. My cousin Jake was the first seeker. All of us kids took off. I decided to hide in the cornfield because it felt sneaky. I pushed my way about 30 rows deep until the house lights were just faint glows between the stalks. I crouched down and waited. At first it was fun, hearing distant shouts and laughter. Then it got quiet. Too quiet. I started hearing movement in the corn a few rows over. Slow, deliberate steps. Not the fast running of kids. I froze. The footsteps stopped right next to where I was hiding, separated only by a thin wall of stalks. I could hear breathing. Heavy, adult breathing. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. After what felt like forever, the steps continued past me, deeper into the field. I waited another minute, then carefully crawled back toward the house on my hands and knees. When I finally broke out of the corn, Most of the kids were already back at the porch. Jake had found almost everyone. Only 3 of us were still missing, including me. One of the missing kids was my younger cousin Lily. She came running out of the barn a minute later, even though we weren't supposed to go in there. She looked pale and said she had hidden in the loft, but then someone else came into the barn and started climbing the ladder. She didn't wait to see who it was. She jumped down from the hay and ran. Jake swore he never went near the barn. None of the adults had joined the game. We never found the 3rd missing kid because he had actually gotten scared and gone inside the house to watch TV. That night, the grown-ups laughed it off and said it was probably just one of the older teenagers messing with us. But Lily kept whispering to me that the person in the barn smelled like cigarettes and old sweat, and that when they climbed the ladder, the rungs creaked like they were really heavy. I still don't know who was walking through that cornfield or climbing into the barn that night. All I know is that when you hide in tall corn at dusk, the rows can hide a lot more than just kids. The last one is more recent. I was 19 and home from college for winter break. My little sister was 13 and obsessed with making TikToks. She and her 2 best friends decided they wanted to film a midnight hide-and-seek challenge in our house while our parents were asleep upstairs. They begged me to be the seeker because they said I was scary when I wanted to be. I agreed, mostly because I was bored. We turned off every light except the nightlight in the hallway. The house was a split level with a basement, main floor, and upstairs bedrooms. I counted to 100 in the living room while the 3 girls scattered. I found the first one pretty fast. She was behind the couch in the family room. The second was in the pantry. That left my sister. I searched the entire main floor and basement twice. Nothing. I went upstairs quietly so I wouldn't wake our parents. I checked my room, her room, the bathroom, even the linen closet. Still nothing. I stood at the top of the stairs and whispered loudly, "Come out, I give up." From downstairs I heard a soft voice say, "I'm down here." I went back down. The basement was empty. I called out again. This time the voice came from upstairs, "I'm up here." My skin went cold. I ran back up. No one. I checked every room again, opening closet doors hard enough to bang them against the walls. Still nothing. Finally I heard giggling from the laundry room on the main floor. I stormed in and found my sister and her friends all hiding together behind the dryer, phones out, recording my confused face. They thought it was hilarious. But here's what they didn't know. While I was running up and down the stairs chasing that voice, I had passed the hallway nightlight 3 different times. Each time, I saw a shadow on the wall that didn't match my own shape. It was taller, thinner, and stayed perfectly still while I moved. When I watched the video they posted later, you could hear the voice clearly on the recording, a whisper that definitely wasn't any of the girls. It sounded like it was coming from inside the walls. They never did another midnight hide-and-seek challenge after that. And I still check the hallway nightlight every night before I go to bed, just to make sure the shadow on the wall is only mine. I was 16 when my friends and I got the bright idea to sneak into the old abandoned summer camp on the edge of town. The place had been closed for years after some counselor drowned in the lake, or at least that was the rumor everyone whispered. The cabins were rotting, the mess hall had broken windows, and vines had taken over the trails. We thought it would be the ultimate hide-and-seek spot, plenty of dark corners, creaky floors, and that perfect forbidden thrill. There were 6 of us. We parked our bikes behind the main gate and slipped through a gap in the fence just as the sun dipped below the trees. We agreed on simple rules. The whole camp was in play, but no one goes near the lake or inside the old boathouse. I volunteered to seek first. I counted to 100 against a big pine tree, listening to the others scatter, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, then nothing but the wind and distant water lapping. When I opened my eyes, the camp felt alive in a way it shouldn't. Shadows stretched longer between the cabins. I started with the nearest one, pushing open a warped door that groaned like it was in pain. Inside smelled of mildew and old wood. I checked under the bunk beds, inside the rusty lockers, even behind the torn curtains. Nothing. I moved to the next cabin, then the one after that, finding 2 of my friends pretty quickly. One giggling nervously behind a pile of old mattresses, another crouched in a closet that reeked of mothballs .4 left. The deeper I went into the camp, the quieter it got. I headed toward the recreation hall, its roof sagging and windows shattered. As I stepped inside, a cold draft hit me, carrying a faint scent of campfire smoke even though no one had lit one. I swept my flashlight across the room and heard the softest shuffle from the stage area. I crept closer, heart picking up speed. "Come out. I know you're there," I whispered. Silence. Then a floorboard creaked right behind me. I spun around fast. Nothing but empty space and dust floating in the beam. I kept searching, calling out names, but the echoes sounded wrong, like someone was repeating them just a second too late. I found another friend hiding under the ping-pong table in the game room, but when I tagged him he looked pale. "Dude," he muttered. "I swear I heard footsteps following me the whole time I was running here." We shrugged it off and kept going. Only 2 remained. I searched the trails, the old archery range, even peeked into the counselor's cabin. Nothing. Finally I stood in the middle of the clearing and yelled, "Game over. Everyone back to base." A faint laugh drifted from the direction of the boathouse, the one place we weren't supposed to go. I hesitated, then walked toward it anyway, curiosity winning over the rules. The door was already ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air was thick and damp, smelling of rotten wood and lake water. My flashlight caught movement near the far wall, a shape ducking behind some old canoes. I moved closer. "Got you," I said, reaching out. But when I got there, no one was hiding. Just empty space and a single wet footprint on the dusty floor that wasn't mine. My stomach twisted. I backed out quickly and found the last 2 friends waiting at the gate, looking nervous. They swore they had never gone near the boathouse. We left fast that night, biking home without talking much. 4 weeks afterward, I kept dreaming of that laugh and the wet footprint. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I still hear faint shuffling footsteps behind me, like someone is still playing the game, waiting for me to turn around and finally find them. Another time, when I was 14, my family rented a big old Victorian house for a week during spring break. The place was beautiful from the outside, wraparound porch, tall windows, a widow's walk on the roof, but inside it felt wrong. The floors creaked even when no one was walking, and every room smelled faintly of lavender and something sharper, like old perfume mixed with dust. My 2 cousins were staying with us, and after the adults went to bed we decided to play hide-and-seek to pass the time. We turned off all the lights except a small lamp in the foyer. The whole house was fair game. My older cousin was seeker first. I hid in the library on the 2nd floor, squeezing behind a heavy velvet curtain that smelled of mothballs. I stayed perfectly still, listening to his footsteps move through the halls. He found my younger cousin pretty fast, then kept searching. I heard him come up the stairs, open doors, check closets. When he reached the library, he paused right in front of my curtain. I held my breath. He stood there for a long time, breathing quietly, then whispered, "I know you're in here." My heart hammered. Finally, he moved on. I waited a few more minutes before slipping out, thinking I had one. Downstairs everyone was gathered, but my cousin looked confused. "I could have sworn I heard breathing behind that curtain," he said, and then footsteps leaving the room right after I walked away. I told him it was just me, but he shook his head. No, the breathing sounded different, deeper. We played another round anyway. This time I was seeker. As I moved through the dark house, I started noticing things. Doors that I had left open were now closed, and once I thought I saw a small shadow dart across the hallway at the top of the stairs. I found both cousins, but every time I turned a corner I felt eyes on my back. The last round, my younger cousin hid somewhere and never came out when we called time. We searched everywhere, under beds, in the attic crawl space, even though we weren't supposed to, behind furniture. The deeper I went, the more the building seemed to breathe. Pipes groaned overhead. Once I thought I heard a child's laugh coming from the far end of the hallway, but none of us had brought kids. I shook it off and kept looking. Only one friend left. I searched the entire main floor twice. Nothing. I headed down to the basement, the air growing colder and damper with every step. My flashlight beam caught movement near the old boiler room, a quick shadow slipping behind some stacked chairs. I approached slowly. "I see you," I called out. No answer. I moved the chairs aside. Empty. That's when I heard footsteps running upstairs, fast and light. I raced back up, but the main hall was deserted. I called my friend's name. From somewhere deep in the building came a soft voice. "Keep looking. I'm still hiding." My blood ran cold. I found the others gathered near the exit, looking uneasy. They said they had heard the same voice, but it wasn't our missing friend. He had actually left early through the window because he got creeped out. We never found who, or what, was still playing with us that night. We got out as fast as we could. Later, when we compared notes, every one of us had heard footsteps or whispers that didn't match anyone in the group. I still drive past that community center sometimes and wonder if the game is still going on inside, waiting for the next person foolish enough to count to 100 in the dark.